Okay, this is Dr. Martin's supplemental lecture, part 2 on chapter 17. I'm going to finish up section 2 and begin section 17.4. So, continuing with our discussion of protozoans, I'm going to finish up the fourth group, and this is a group of protozoans that lack what we call motility. That's the term that's used for movement in these organisms. There is a group within this category that are referred to as the apicomplexans. They are called this because of a structure by that name that is used to enter host cells. So these are parasitic, and the one genus that I want you to know is Plasmodium. And Plasmodium is the organism, or different species of Plasmodium are the organisms that cause malaria. Malaria is prevalent in different parts of the world, and it can be fatal, especially to young and to elderly individuals. The life cycle of Plasmodium is somewhat complex. It's a little bit different than the free-living creatures that we've been talking about. So let's take a look at Plasmodium. And there is a diagram in your textbook, figure 17-8. And what I want you to notice here is that there are several hosts organisms that carry some part of the cycle of Plasmodium. So one of them is the mosquito, and the other is the human host. So typically a mosquito that carries Plasmodium, usually in its saliva, will bite a human, and the Plasmodium will enter the human organism and migrate to the liver. It will infect liver cells, and it will multiply. Ultimately, it will escape those liver cells and enter the blood. Now it will, in a different part of its life cycle, replicate within the bloodstream, and if another mosquito, maybe that's uninfected, bites that human, it's going to then take up the Plasmodium, and then it can transfer to a second human host through a bite. And so then it will replicate within that host. Okay, that's the end of section 2. What I'd like to do now is to turn to the next section that I asked you to read, and that was section 4. We're actually skipping section 3, and we're going to talk about the algae. So the algae are all photosynthetic. Some are unicellular, some are multicellular, and they're typically divided into, at least informally, into a number of categories. And I will list them here. So first we have a group called the euglenoids, and a common genus is Euglena. Second category are the dinoflagellates. Third grouping are the diatoms. And then actually I'm going to have a larger subcategory. So the fourth category here are what are commonly called seaweeds. So they're mostly multicellular, and they include the brown algae, the green algae, and red algae. Algae are typically categorized in a number of ways, or classified, I should say. So they're classified by the cell wall, type of cell wall, the structure of the organism's, the entire organism, the types of photosynthetic pigments, the different types of storage carbohydrates, and more recently, the DNA sequence of the genome. All right, so let's talk about the Euglena first. There is a diagram of the structure of the Euglena in your textbook, figure 17-12. Euglena has one long flagella and then typically a very short flagella. It has an eye spot that is sensitive to light. It's a sort of a light detector. Contractile vacuoles for water regulation, nuclei, and of course chloroplast. This is a very common organism. in ponds, although I don't think any of us saw any in the samples that I brought in the other day. One unusual feature is that it actually lacks a cell wall, but it has an unusual cell membrane that's rather rigid. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and I'll continue in part 3.